You planted lavender because you had a picture in your head. Maybe it was a field in Provence, purple rose running to the horizon. Maybe it was just a neighbor's front path, silver mounds buzzing with bees, that smell hitting you from 6 feet away, so you took one home. You gave it a good spot, good soil, plenty of water, maybe a little feed to get it going, everything a good gardener is supposed to do, and it repaid you with almost nothing. A few thin flower spikes, a washed-out scent you had to crush the leaves to find. And then, sometime in its second or third year, it started going gray and woody from the inside out, like it was aging decades in a single season. And here's what no one at the garden center ever says out loud. Lavender is not a delicate plant. It's a tough Mediterranean survivor, and the single most common way it dies is that somebody loved it too much. Almost everything your gardening instincts tell you to do for a struggling plant, richer soil, more water, a bit of fertilizer, leave it alone to recover, is exactly the thing that kills lavender. This plant doesn't just tolerate neglect, it requires it. And once you understand why, you'll never lose another one. In the next few minutes, I'll show you the 5 mistakes that silently kill lavender before it ever gets its Provence moment, and all 5 can be fixed, even on a plant that's been in the ground for years. Make sure you're still here for number 5, because that's the one that turns a soft silver dome into a bare wooden skeleton, and it's the one mistake on this list with no way back. Because the obvious rescue is the very thing that finishes the plant off for good. Most people never see it coming. Let's fix that. Mistake number 1. You planted it in your best soil. This is the one that happens before the lavender even goes in the ground, and it comes from the best possible intentions. Every gardening guide you've ever read says the same thing. Prepare the soil. Dig in compost. Add organic matter. Give the plant a rich, dark, fertile bed to sink its roots into. That advice is right for roses, it's right for vegetables. It's right for almost everything you'll ever plant. Lavender reads that same rich soil as a threat. Here's the mechanism. Lavender evolved on the dry, rocky hillsides of the Mediterranean thin soil over limestone, baked by sun, drained in minutes. Its roots are built for exactly that, lean ground and fast drainage. When you plant it in rich, moisture-holding soil full of compost, 2 things go wrong at once. First, all that organic matter holds water around the roots like a wet sponge, and lavender roots sitting in damp soil begin to rot quietly, invisibly, below the surface. Second, all that fertility pushes the plant into soft, lush, leafy growth. That sounds good, but it isn't. Soft growth flops open in rain. Soft growth is what fungus moves into. And a lavender that's busy making leaves is a lavender that isn't making flowers. So the plant you pampered ends up floppy, sparse, and sulking, while the lavender growing out of a crack in a driveway 3 streets over is covered in bloom. That's not a coincidence. That's the whole story of this plant. The fix runs completely against instinct, which is why it works. Don't improve the soil, make it worse. Before planting, mix a generous amount of horticultural grit, coarse sand, or fine gravel into the planting area, as much as 1 part grit to 2 parts soil if your ground is heavy. If you're on clay, don't even try to fight it at depth. Plant your lavender on a mound or a ridge, 3 to 4 inches above the surrounding ground, so water drains away from the crown instead of pooling around it. And if yours is already in the ground in rich soil, lift it in early autumn or spring, work grit into the hole, and replant it slightly proud of the soil line. Lavender takes that move far better than it takes another wet winter. Poor soil, sharp drainage, full sun. That's not the minimum lavender will accept. That's what it's asking for. Mistake number 2. You watered it like everything else. Walk down any street in summer and you can spot the doomed lavenders. They're the ones in the beautifully tended gardens because the person who waters their garden faithfully, every plant, every evening, is watering their lavender into an early grave. Here's what's actually happening under the surface. Lavender is a drought plant to its core. Those narrow, silvery leaves aren't decoration. The color comes from a coating of fine hairs that reflect sunlight and trap a layer of moist air against the leaf. Purpose-built equipment for surviving heat with almost no water. Its roots are designed to pull moisture from dry ground. What those roots have absolutely no defense against is constant wetness. Keep the soil damp and the fine roots begin to die off and rot. And here's the cruel part. The first symptom of root rot looks exactly like drought. The plant wilts. It looks thirsty. So you water it more. And the plant you think you're rescuing, you're actually drowning one kind evening at a time. It's not a fussy plant. It's a dry hillside plant being treated like a bog plant. The fix is beautifully cheap. Stop. In its first growing season, while it's establishing, water deeply but rarely, a good soak once a week in hot weather, and always let the soil dry out completely between drinks. From its second year on, an established lavender in the ground needs almost nothing from you. Rain will do. Only step in during a genuine prolonged drought, and even then, once every couple of weeks is plenty. And one more detail almost nobody mentions. If you mulch your beds with bark or compost, pull it well away from your lavender. Moisture-holding mulch piled around the base traps damp right where the plant can least survive it. If you want to mulch lavender, use gravel or stone chips. They keep the crown dry, they reflect light back up into the plant, and they make it feel right at home on its rocky hillside. Your watering can is not this plant's friend. The sooner you believe that, the sooner it starts blooming. Mistake number 3. You bought the wrong lavender for where you live. This mistake hides in plain sight, because at the garden center, they all look the same. Silvery leaves, purple flowers, that smell. You grabbed the prettiest one, planted it, cared for it perfectly, and it still died over winter or melted into a gray mush in your humid summer. And you blamed yourself for something that was decided before you ever got the plant home. And almost no one explains this at the point of sale. Lavender isn't one plant. What sits on that garden center bench is at least 3 different species with completely different tolerances, usually labeled with nothing more helpful than lavender. English lavender, the classic, with the slim flower spikes, is the tough one. It's hardy to well below zero, shrugs off frost and snow, and it's the one behind those famous cold climate lavender farms. If you get proper winters, this is your plant. Spanish lavender, the one with the little pineapple-shaped flower heads topped with wing-like petals, is the tender show-off. It blooms early and hard, but a serious freeze kills it outright. And French lavender, with the toothed leaves, sits in between. Gorgeous, long flowering, and not built for cold winters at all. So picture what actually happens. A gardener in a cold region falls for the Spanish lavender because it's the prettiest one on the bench in April. It thrives all summer. They congratulate themselves. Then the first hard winter arrives and the plant is simply gone by March, and they conclude that they can't grow lavender, when the truth is they grew the wrong lavender perfectly. Meanwhile, someone in a hot, humid climate plants English lavender, which despises humid air, and watches it rot in August no matter what they do. Same plant, opposite ending, and neither gardener did anything wrong except trust a label that told them nothing. The fix takes 30 seconds and it happens before you buy. And here's one more twist. The common names get swapped around depending on where in the world you live, what one country calls French lavender, another calls Spanish, so never trust the common name alone. Trust the flower shape and the leaf, then flip the label over and check the botanical name in small print. The Latin doesn't lie. Cold winters. You want English lavender or its hybrids? Look for tough-named varieties bred for hardiness. Hot and humid. Go for the toothed leaf and pineapple-flowered types, or hybrids, specifically bred to handle moist air. And if you've already got a lavender in the ground and don't know which it is, look at the flower. Slim spike, you've got the hardy one. Pineapple with wings, get it into a pot you can shelter, or take cuttings before winter as insurance. Right plant, right place isn't a cliche here. With lavender, it's the entire difference between a shrub that lives 15 years and one that doesn't see its second spring. Mistake number 4. You fed it. Of the 5, this is the heavyweight, and it's the one that feels the most like good gardening, which is exactly why it does the most damage. Every instinct you have as a gardener says, if you want more flowers, feed the plant. Tomato, feed for tomatoes. Rose, feed for roses. It's practically the first law of gardening: hungry plants don't bloom. So you give your lavender a scoop of fertilizer in spring, maybe a liquid feed through summer, and you wait for the flower explosion. And you get the opposite. Fewer flowers, weaker scent, a plant that looks somehow both lusher and worse. Here's the mechanism, and it's worth understanding because it flips how you see this plant forever. The thing you actually grow lavender for, the fragrance, the oils, the intensity of the bloom is, botanically speaking, a stress response. Those essential oils are the plant's armor, produced in quantity when lavender grows hard and lean in poor ground under strong sun. That's why the most fragrant lavender in the world grows on thin, stony, starved soil. Now feed that plant especially with a nitrogen-rich general fertilizer, and you've switched off the very chemistry you wanted. Nitrogen tells a plant one thing: make leaves. So it makes leaves. Soft, sappy, fast-grown foliage at the expense of flowers, thin on oil, floppy in rain, irresistible to aphids, and far less able to harden itself off before winter. You paid money to make your lavender worse at being lavender. Let that land for a second, because it's the whole plant in one sentence. Lavender doesn't bloom because it's well-fed. It blooms because it isn't. The fix costs you nothing, literally. Stop feeding it. No spring fertilizer, no liquid feeds, no manure mulch around the base. In the ground, in the lean, gritty soil we built back in Mistake 1, lavender needs no feeding at all, ever. The one exception is lavender in pots, where nutrients wash out over time, and even there, one small dose of a low-nitrogen, high-potash feed in spring is the ceiling, not the floor. If you've already been feeding yours, just stop and give it a season. Plants recover from being spoiled faster than they recover from rot. Every other plant in your garden rewards generosity. This one rewards restraint. Once you accept that, lavender becomes the easiest thing you grow. Mistake number 5. You skip the yearly haircut and then cut too deep. I've kept this one for the end because it's the cruelest of the 5. And here's the twist. This whole video so far has been me telling you to do less. Less feeding, less watering, less fussing. This is the one job lavender genuinely needs from you every single year. Skip it, and you set a trap that takes years to spring, and by the time you notice, you're one snip away from killing the plant. Here's how it happens. Your lavender blooms. It looks wonderful. So you leave it alone. Pruning feels like something you do to plants with problems, and this one has none. Next year, same thing. But each year, the stems at the base are steadily thickening into bare brown wood, and the green growth is riding higher and higher on top of it. 3 or 4 years in, The mound splits open in the middle, and you're looking at a sprawling, gappy thing that's mostly bare, woody legs with tufts of green at the tips. A silver dome turned into a wooden skeleton. And now comes the fatal move. You think, it's overgrown? I'll cut it right back and let it regrow. That works for roses. It works for most shrubs. So you go in hard, down into that old brown wood, and the plant never comes back. Because here's the fact almost nobody tells you until it's too late. Lavender cannot regrow from old wood. Those bare brown stems have almost no dormant buds in them. Cut a stem back below its green growth and, on most lavenders, that stem is finished. Not resting. Finished. Whole plants are killed this way every spring by gardeners performing what they believe is a rescue. A dead plant, from a single act of kindness. So the fix comes in two parts, prevention and rescue, and the difference between them matters. Prevention is a yearly haircut, and it's non-negotiable. Every year, right after the main flush of flowers fades in late summer, trim the whole plant back by about a third, shaping it into a tidy dome, cutting into the green. Leafy growth only, always leaving a couple of inches of green below your cut. If you live somewhere with cold winters, just make sure you do it early enough that the plant gets a good 6 weeks of growing weather before the first frost. A fresh cut going into a freeze is asking for trouble. That yearly trim is what keeps the plant dense, keeps the green growth low, and stops old wood from ever taking over. Do this one thing annually and your lavender stays a compact silver mound for 10, 15 years or more. Rescue is for the plant that's already woody, and it demands patience instead of courage. Look low down on those bare stems for any small green shoots emerging from near the base. If they're there, the plant can still be saved. Cut to just above them, never below, and do it in spring, not autumn, so the plant has a full season to rebuild. Take the worst third of the stems this year, the next third the year after, and the rest the year after that. Some old plants will come back beautifully in stages. And if there's no green anywhere, low down, then the honest answer is that the plant is telling you it's done, take cuttings from the green tips, root them on a windowsill, and grow its replacement for free. That's not defeat. That's how lavender has always been passed along. The pruners are either this plant's best friend or its executioner. The only difference is where the blade lands. The recap. So here's the whole picture, the difference between a lavender drowning in bloom and one going woody in silence. You plant it in poor, gritty, fast-draining soil on a mound if your ground is heavy instead of your best bed. You put the watering can away after year 1 and let it live dry. You match the species to your climate before you buy. Hardy English types for cold winters, the tender types for heat and humidity. You never feed it, because its fragrance and flowers come from lean living, not luxury. And you give it a light haircut into the green every single year, so you never face old bare wood, and if you already do, you rescue it in patient stages, never with one big cut. Not one of these fixes is difficult. Most of them are things you stop doing, not things you start. Lavender isn't delicate, and it was never dying because you weren't good enough. It was dying because you were treating a Mediterranean hillside plant like an English rose. It runs on different rules than the rest of your garden, and now you're in on them. If this just explained what's been happening to your lavender, hit that subscribe button. This channel is where plants stop being mysteries. No filler, no folklore, just what actually works. And drop a number in the comments. Tell me which of the 5 you've been guilty of. My money's on number 2, because nearly every lavender that dies in a well-kept garden dies with a watering can standing right next to it. Now go put down the hose, pick up the pruners gently, and give your lavender the tough love it actually wants.